Hi, everybody. This is Lori from GLP1 Journey in Review. Today, we're going to do a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today, we have Pamela from Perfectly Pamela. She's got a great YouTube channel. It's going to be linked down below in the description. So please like and subscribe, not only my video, but check out her YouTube channel and like and subscribe. It really does help. I want to also say that I am not a healthcare provider. My guest is not a healthcare provider. We're talking about what works for us. And again, if you find this useful at all, entertaining, or you get any value out of it, please hit that like button. So, Pamela, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am 54 years old. I am postmenopausal and found that when I was going through menopause, I was starting to pack on pounds that I just could
Mhm.
not get rid of. And I started going through menopause probably like in my late 30s, early 40s, so kind of early. And um yeah, it just the pounds just started going, packing on, and it seemed like no matter what I would do, I just couldn't lose the weight. So I've been on my GLP-1 journey now for about 7 months, and I've lost a little over 40 pounds. So I finally found something that works, and I'm excited about it. So,
It's some pretty good stuff.
mhm,
Congratulations on your weight loss.
thank you.
Is there which medication are you on again?
I am on compound trizepatide.
Yeah, that's what I'm on. Why did you pick tirzepatide versus the semaglutide?
Well, when I was researching about the different medications,
Hmm.
and I found out that, I'm a researcher, so I did a lot of digging, and I found out that one people were seeing more success or greater success on tirzepatide than they were with semaglutide. Not that people on semaglutide weren't seeing success; it was just
Right.
the percentage of weight loss was greater with the tirzepatide, and also the side effects. I was hearing that more people were experiencing side effects on semaglutide, and I'm like, well, it's a
Hmm.
no-brainer. If I can get a better weight loss percentage with less chance of side effects, then I'm going to go for that one. And then also, I knew that overall, from not necessarily my starting point on
Hmm.
tirzepatide, but overall from my highest weight, I had to lose about 100 pounds. So I'm figuring 20% of my body weight, I would be better off going with tirzepatide. And, I knew it was a little bit more expensive, but I figured it was going to be worth it in the end.
My wife started off on the Ozempic. She's type 2 diabetic, so she gets name brand, and she just had way too many side effects and stopped.
Yeah.
And then when she saw what success I had, and like I basically had zero side effects, she went on the Monjaro and basically has had no side effects. Have you had any of the side effects?
The main one I've had is constipation, and it's
Hmm.
managed now. I take Mago 7, so I'm able to manage it.
Uh-huh.
But that was the first thing that I was looking for, was I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna have side effects. I Every once in a while I'll get a little bit of nausea, kind of feeling like morning sickness type nausea, where you're not feeling like you just really need to go and throw up, but you're just feeling like nothing sounds appetizing. Your stomach just kind of feels a little queasy. And I'll get that every once in a while, maybe about 10 minutes after my injection, but it only lasts about 10 minutes. And usually when I get that, I'll just grab some saltine crackers and
Hmm.
it's fine. So very, very mild. But other than that, it's mainly the constipation. And now that I've found that the Mago 7, I take that twice a week. I take
Hmm.
three capsules twice a week, and I haven't had any problems since I started doing
Oh,
that.
that's great. That's great.
Yes,
Uh,
definitely.
so what dose are you on?
I am on 5.95. So
Hmm.
that's the one thing with me when we all started or most of us, I guess, started the 2.5 milligrams, and that was perfectly fine. I tried to stay on that as long as possible. I ended up on that for about 5 weeks before I titrated up. And when I went up to 5 milligrams, I could not eat. And so I talked to my doctor and I was like, "Hey, this is too strong. I can't do this." But the 2.5 really wasn't suppressing my appetite
Hmm.
anymore. So we kind of played around with the dosage. So that's the thing that I love about being on a compound is I have that
Absolutely.
leeway. Yes. And so when it was time, when I noticed the 5 was not suppressing my appetite very much anymore, I knew it was time to start going up. But I talked to my doctor again, and I was like, I don't know if I want to jump up to the 7. And so we just bumped it up a little bit.
Hmm.
And I've been on 5.95 now for, I want to say, about a month, and it's working great. So,
Oh, that's great. I think it was a toss up between 5 and 7.5 as to my favorite dose.
hmm
I didn't get any higher than 10. I did try like 12 for like 2 weeks, and
hmm
I was literally forcing myself to eat and drink, and I'm like, nah, this is not good. So I
yes.
gradually went back down, and then once I'm on maintenance now, once I reached my goal, I titrated down to 7.5, and I tried 5 for about 2 weeks, and like the food noise was just a little bit there, and I'm like,
Mhm.
nah, I think I'll go back up to 7. Will I ever try 5? Possibly.
Right.
I think this maintenance thing is like, they haven't figured it out yet, and
hmm
um, so you and I are both on compound. Are you worried that the compound is going to go away?
Yes. So, funny thing is, I work for an insurance company, and
Uh-huh.
we do not cover GLP-1s for weight loss. So, so that's my biggest fear is if compound goes away, how am I going to afford this? Because even with the discounts that Lilly's giving now, and now that they have all the vials, even at $400, $500 a month, that's a stretch. I pay about
Yeah.
$600 for a 3 month supply, and
Hmm.
air quotes, 3 month supply of 10 milligrams. So
Right.
when I'm using 5.95, that ends up lasting a lot longer than 3 months.
Right.
So,
Don't tell anybody, but I buy 15 milligrams even though I don't use it. So vial
right,
lasts me twice as long.
exactly, exactly. So, I'm spending like maybe 200 a month
Hmm.
possibly on my compound. And so that I can fit in my budget, but $500 a month is a bit of a stretch for
That,
me.
that is a tough one.
I'm hoping that they will either one lower the price of the brand because if they did, I would definitely go to brand if I had
Absolutely.
that option financially. But other than that, I'm praying that they find some way that compound can still be available. I do have a supply that
That was my next question.
yes, I ordered enough to last me right now through January, which is when my bud date is on my. I just opened. I've got 2 more vials from Empower that
Hmm.
the bud date is in October, and then I have one vial from Hallandale that the bud date is in January. So I've got enough to last me through January. I'm hoping something changes before then.
I
So
think I've got like January, February. I think some of my bud dates might expire, but if it's only 95% effective, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. Although
right.
I do have both me and my wife are using the compound because her Zepbound has a 1 year expiration date.
hmm
So, we're trying to get rid of some of the older stuff first.
Right.
You know. And
But
I'm hoping by then maybe with the newer medications coming out, maybe the price
mhm.
will drop, or maybe Eli Lilly will come to their senses and bring it down to 250, $300,
Yeah,
where it should be at most, because I mean most countries it is about $200.
exactly.
And the stuff only costs $5 to make. So, there's
Right.
still a lot of profit there. And if you're gonna
Yeah.
get the pen costs $1. Personally, I like the vials
Mhm,
because you could adjust it a little bit better.
mhm. Exactly, exactly. That's my main thing is the vials. You can customize your dose, and especially for someone like me, who when I tried to titrate up, it just was too strong. If you're stuck to using a pen that's gonna, where you can't customize that dose, then I would have to either suffer with the higher dose and not being able to eat, trying to force myself to eat, or trying to manage the food noise on a lower dose. And it's just not it's more manageable with the vials.
Even the pens, like I've interviewed a couple people from the UK, and they use a different type of pen
Hmm.
where, like, you get the whole month in it's called a quick pen,
Right.
and they have it figured out that basically 60 clicks is a dose. So if you wanted to do a half dose, you would just click it 30
Oh,
times.
okay. Okay.
But, even they somewhat have it figured out where, they're not letting you do that at all in this country. It's like,
Right. And I don't
it's,
understand
it's,
why it's so different, you know but
I don't either. I guess because they could. Yeah.
yeah. Exactly,
No,
exactly.
no other explanation. So, have you ever thought about dose splitting?
I have thought about that. And I don't know. I haven't given that a whole lot of thought, but I have thought about it. I don't know right now that it would be something that I would really be interested in doing, just because what I'm doing now is working. If I
Right.
felt like halfway through the week I was starting to get the food noise, which, come to think of it, what's interesting with me is I feel more suppression towards the end of the week when it's almost time to
Hmm.
give my injection than the first 2 days after. So I give my injections on Fridays. Saturday and Sunday, I tend to be more hungry. And then
Hmm.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I start to feel more suppression. And then I'm still okay Thursday, Friday, I'm giving my injection again. So, but if it was the other way, where I'm feeling the suppression Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then Tuesday I'm starting to hear food noise again, then I might consider splitting my doses. It's just not something that I feel that I would need to do right now. So,
That's I started to feel some of the food noise come back, but
mhm,
I just didn't like the fact that I wasn't getting that full dose at first, and I didn't really want to increase it. And yeah, I'm like, even though I'm hearing a little bit of the food noise, I'm on maintenance and I haven't gained any weight. So, to me,
yeah,
just kind of, I'm sticking with it. And like I said, I'm hoping with the orforglipron, doing it daily,
mhm,
pills, that might be the perfect answer for maintenance because it won't have that type of up and down with the
right.
appetite suppression.
So is that what you're
So
looking to go to? Is the orforglipron? I can never say that
tough
word.
word, tough word. I have a hard time with that one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because it won't need refrigeration, they're talking about it costing, the rumor is about $200 for the month.
Okay.
So it makes it somewhat affordable. Um, you know, we'll see. I mean, like I said,
Right.
this is working. Like I said, I just think that with the retatrutide and the orforglipron, that it can only help the prices.
Right. Yeah. More competition
Right.
means prices are going to have to be more competitive. So
Have you done any of the research on the newer products or coming out?
I haven't. I mean, I watch a lot of the downsized and
Right.
on the pen, and that's kind of where I get
Hmm.
my GLP-1 news from. Is those two
Absolutely. Me
channels.
too.
Um, so I see what's going on, but I really haven't looked too much into it, as far because, to be honest, I'm happy with what I'm on. So it's like, stick with what works until it doesn't work. So if it's no longer
Right.
available, then that's when I'm really going to start looking into other options. But for now, while I'm doing good, I'm going to keep on trucking, you know.
So did you have an aha moment that kind of made you decide to do the GLP-1 medication?
I don't know if it was really an aha moment specifically for the GLP-1. I had an aha moment that I needed to do something. And what it was after my father passed away, and we had a service for him. We were at my niece's house after the
Mhm.
service, and my mom was taking pictures, and she took like a family picture of me and my kids. And so later I was looking at the picture and I was like, oh my God, that's what I look like.
Mhm.
And because you look at yourself in the mirror, you see yourself every day, and the change is so subtle that when you're seeing yourself every day, you don't realize until you finally take a step back and look at it from a different perspective. That's when you see where you've come from and where you are. And I was always like real athletic growing up. I was, when I was in junior high school, one of my friends across the street used to always tell me, "Oh, you're so skinny. You need to put on some weight." and and so I always felt like I was underweight and was always trying to put on weight. Well, I did, and it just went to the opposite end of the spectrum. And so when I saw that picture, I was like, I need to do something. And by then, of course, I was starting to have health problems. My blood pressure was already high. And I had, at my previous checkup, went to the doctor and she heard something with my heart, and it ended up checking out okay, but it was just something that was kind of concerning in the back of my mind. And my father passed away from heart failure. And so I was like, I've got to get a handle on this. And then a month after my brother passed away, and it was like, okay, you've got to do something. So I started working out, started watching what I was eating. I tried the keto diet. I tried just exercising in the standard American diet, monitoring how much I'm eating. And I was meal prepping. I was doing everything. And I had lost, on keto, I lost about 65 pounds. But as soon as I stopped doing keto, it just all came back. So at my highest weight, I was at 240 pounds, and I'm only 5'2". So
Right, you're my height.
240, yeah. So you can imagine 240 pounds. That's a lot on a 5'2" frame. And so we have this program at work, where they do weight loss, and that you have a dietitian, you have a nurse practitioner that's assigned to you, you have monthly calls with your dietitian, and you have, like, every 6 weeks you'll have a call with your nurse practitioner. And so I was on metformin, naltrexone, and topiramate, and I lost maybe about 5 to 10 pounds doing that, but I still wasn't able to keep it off. And so I stopped doing the program. And then I decided I was going to try to do it again. And when I called them back, they said, "Oh, well, we now offer the GLP1s, but you have to meet certain criteria." And that was either diabetic or pre diabetic with other conditions. And I didn't meet. So, and when I talked to her, I was like, "I don't want to do a GLP-1. I don't want to inject." I said, "That's the thing that you inject in yourself, right?" And she said, "Yeah, those are the injections." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. Just put me back on the medicine." And so I got back on the medicine, and I can't remember if it was the topiramate or the naltrexone, but one of those I took, and it was the strangest thing. I was driving to work, or driving to pick my daughter up from work. It was like 9:30 at night, and I was starting to feel this overwhelming anxiety. Like every car on the road was trying to run me off the road. And I'm like, what is
Hmm.
going on? I have two daughters that have driving anxiety. And I always thought, oh, y'all are nuts. Get in your car and you drive. Like, what's so anxious about that? I finally understood. And I was like, why am I feeling like this? I've never had anxiety like this before. This is crazy. And within the next day or two, I started feeling like heart palpitations. I felt like my body was just trembling, and I knew it was one of those medicines. And I was like, I'm never taking this again. And it took me almost a week before I felt myself again. And so that's when I said, I've got to do something else. And I started researching the GLP-1s, and I was like, I'm not going to do it through the program because I don't qualify, but I'll see what I'm going to do. And find a telehealth. And again, I'm a researcher, so I made a spreadsheet. And every telehealth, because once you start looking at stuff on Facebook or Instagram, you'll start seeing more of those
More
posts.
ads.
Every time one came up in my feed, I would put it on my little spreadsheet. And so I just scroll. And one day I sat there for like 3 hours just scrolling, writing down the names of all these different telehealth. And then I started Googling them and finding out, I went to the Better Business Bureau. I was looking up, like researching their ratings, Reddit posts, anything that I could find about the company. And I would go to their website and see if they list their prices. And if they did, I was putting all that in my spreadsheet. So I had narrowed it down to this one that's actually here in Houston called Care Clinic.
Mhm.
And
I've
I
used
think
them.
you have. Did you
Hmm.
like them?
I like them when the first company that I used, I didn't like, but I didn't know anything about the GLP-1. I'm like, I just knew there was another way you could
Mhm.
get it. And I'm like, oh, is somebody making this in their garage or something like that. And then one of the guys that I work with, he I do CT scans, and obviously
Yes.
so does he. But sometimes he's a part-time race car driver, and
Uh-huh.
he's like, oh, me and my whole crew are using, this trizepatide, and here's who we get it from, and we're okay and stuff like that. And they're
Yeah.
right here in Tampa because I live in Florida.
Hmm.
And I called them and I gave it a try. Well, it came in pre-filled syringes that they obviously filled. It
Yeah.
came warm, which again, I still used it and still
Yeah.
lost some weight. And I'm like, time to try to find another provider. And
Hmm.
I found the Care Clinic, and the only thing I didn't like about them,
Hmm.
I liked it, I didn't like, is that when you wanted a refill, you had to have a doctor or a visit with a healthcare provider
Hmm.
each time. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, it took me a bit to find a time that was good for both of us because, like, I have weird schedules doing
Hmm.
CT scans. I'm like, so this could be a little bit of a hassle. I mean,
Right.
it's a good idea medically, but time wise, it just wasn't that good. And then I actually started using Orderly,
Orderly
which
method.
I've thought was a little bit expensive, and I switched to Mochi.
Uh-huh.
And I've pretty much been using both of those since.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
that was my experience with Care Clean. It came,
Yeah.
they used Red Rock. It came cold. Everything was good. Their price was okay. It's just, like there were only
Yeah.
several of their providers that did appointments in the evening, when I got off of work,
Mhm.
because sometimes that's like
Okay.
8 o'clock at night for me.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work out because, I don't want to be without the medication. They wouldn't really let you get more than 1 month at a time. I don't know if they're still like
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, okay. So when I started with it's so kind of back to the story real quick, I narrowed it down to Care Clinic and 5410. And
Hmm.
so I was comparing their prices, and Care Clinics was slightly cheaper for they had at the time, and I don't know if they still have this. They had at the time like a 3 month starter where you get the vials with the 2.5 milligrams, 4 or 5 milligrams, and 5 doses of the 7 milligrams. And so I was like, okay, that was great. And I think it was right at about 550 plus you paid $49 for the visit. So I was like, okay, around $600. No big deal. So I ended up going with them, and I was like, after I do this, then I can switch over to 5410 because I think the monthly was cheaper. And long story short, I never ended up going to 5410. But so I got the one from Care Clinic, and I guess my schedule is a little bit more flexible because I work from home. So
Hmm.
and my boss is pretty lenient. If I need to take 10, 15 minutes away from my desk to do something, I'm not tied to my desk all day. So I was able to get my appointment and, get that. And they shipped it actually from Empower, which is also here in Houston. So
Hmm.
I got it pretty quick. It was cold, no problems with that. And I ended up, when it was almost time for me to reorder, I saw another YouTuber, Alonda 180. She was talking about Lavender Sky Health. And I was like, that's a company that I hadn't researched. And surprisingly so, because I had researched about 50 different telehealth companies, and that one never came up in my feed. And so I was like, well, let me go check them out. And that's who I've been with ever since. I really like them. They don't have the requirement where you have to meet with a provider unless you want to go up. I think they have like where you can get a regular 1 month supply or like a 2 month supply. But if you want to jump to like a 6 month supply, you have to meet with a
Mhm.
doctor. And they want you to meet with a doctor, I think like once every 6 months or every
Mhm.
9 months, something like that,
That's
just to.
reasonable.
Yeah, but when I've gotten my refills, I haven't had to meet with a provider, and I'll just message them and say, "Hey, I don't want to jump to this dose. Can I do this?" And they'll message me back. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Everything is through messaging, and so I like them. What I really liked about their website is they were very detailed in everything on their website. Their website is a little outdated, I guess, but it has a whole lot of information. And they had links to videos to show you how to do your
Mhm.
injection. They had all of this information about the medication, what it does, how it works. And they also offer, if you want, they offer health coaching, and it just,
That's great.
yeah, then there's no monthly fee. That's the one thing that I was really looking for. I don't want to have to pay a monthly fee for the service, because I'm probably not going to do anything outside of seeing the doctor to get my medication. I have, through my job, I have where I can see a mental health provider for free. I have where I can see my nutritionist under my insurance. So I don't necessarily need that through another company. I just want my medicine.
Mm.
So
So has the medication help with your blood pressure?
it has. Now I'm still on my blood pressure medicine, but even on my medicine, my blood pressure typically would run like right at the very top of normal. So not quite high, but 124, mid 120s to upper 80s for the diastolic. So like 124 over 80. So not necessarily high, but like
Mhm.
closer to the high end of normal. And the last time I went in, I think my blood pressure was like 115 over 70. And I was like, what? Are you sure? And she was like, "Yeah, that's what it says." And I was like, "Oh, wow, okay." so, so it's doing better. And the only
That's
thing I
great.
can contribute it to is the weight loss and the medicine.
I'm sure that plays a good role in it and eating
Yeah.
healthy. So what does your typical day of food look like?
Typical breakfast is a Fairlife shake and either a protein muffin. I've been eating the Quest protein muffins a lot,
Mhm.
or I've bought like the Jimmy Dean croissant sandwiches, or something, something like that with the
Right.
eggs and the cheese and the sausage, or a sausage biscuit, something like that. So I'm at least getting a little bit more protein on top of the protein shake. That's usually breakfast pretty much every day. I'm gonna have the Fairlife shake every day, regardless.
Mhm.
But I try to get something else on top of that. Lunch and dinner really varies for me. Um, I can't really say that I have a typical. I do depend a lot on frozen foods. That is
Mhm.
one thing I will say, that being on this medicine, I don't feel like cooking anything because nothing sounds appetizing to me. And so if I do have something that, like, I may say, last week, for some reason I wanted meatloaf. And I didn't feel like cooking meatloaf, so I was like, maybe I'll just buy a frozen meal. If I had cooked the meatloaf, I would have ate it one time and then I wouldn't have wanted
Mhm.
it anymore. so, so that's kind of the thing that I go through is when I find something that I have a taste for, if I cook it, then the rest of it's going to end up going to waste. So I usually will try to get frozen meals, but I do try to get stuff that's like not the fried, like chicken strips or
Right.
and I do eat those. I have not cut anything out. That's the one thing that I was adamant about. I don't want to go back to eating like I was on keto where I couldn't
Right.
have any carbs or because French fries is one of my favorite things in the world. And if I deprive
Absolutely.
myself of that, I'm going to end up binging on them. And I don't want to do that. So, but if I eat it, I don't eat that much of it. And
Right.
so, I will say the one thing that I have eaten a lot of since I've been on this is tacos. and, but not like, Taco Bell tacos. I'll get the tortillas and, cook the meat myself and make my own tacos. So, yeah, that's at least once a week I'm eating a taco.
So seeing that you're into getting some frozen foods, what do you think about all these companies that are all of a sudden slapping the GLP-1 label or GLP-1 friendly, same exact um, recipe as it was before, just they have the label on it.
Right. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because when I first saw, I was going through, I think Instacart or something, and I think Healthy Choice had something that said
Hmm.
GLP-1 friendly, and I was like, oh wow, let me look at this and see what is it more protein? What's different about it? And I'm like, it's the same thing, you know. So I I don't even pay attention to that whether it says GLP-1 friendly anymore or when I was doing keto, I kind of knew what to stay away from. So if it had potatoes or rice in it, then you know, I get things that are like I said, I try to stay away from the fried ones and I just try to get stuff that's got a meat, a vegetable, and maybe a carb source. But those frozen meals don't have a whole lot in them unless you get like the Hungry Man meals. So I'm
Right.
usually just getting something that has like a balanced portion of different things in it.
And one of the things that I've had to go to because they keep changing my hours at work, and somehow now I'm all of a sudden like working like a 14-hour day, and I just don't feel like coming home and cooking. So like I've been using the factor meals, the delivery.
I love Factor meals. They're just so expensive, but they are good.
Yeah, they do come out to like $10, $11, but they give you the protein, everything is right on the label. It's fresh, good portion control. And like,
Yeah,
when they do have like mashed potatoes, it's a small serving just so that
right.
you get a taste of it.
Yeah.
And again, not quite as processed as
Mhm.
some of the frozen foods.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. That is one thing I've been thinking about starting getting Factor meals again, just because when you get them on, they have those coupons and stuff. So sometimes you
right.
can get them at a pretty good deal. And I haven't tried them since I was doing keto. When I was doing keto, that's when I was doing the Factor meals, and I loved them. Even the keto
Hmm.
meals with, but you're right, they're so fresh. And so a lot of times I would not finish the meals. So it's like I
Hmm.
don't want them to go bad. I'd end up sticking them in the freezer and I'd have them for later. But they say they're not intended to be frozen. But I haven't had a
I've
problem with
frozen them.
yeah, I've frozen them and then I just, cook them a little bit longer in the microwave. But yeah, they are really fresh. So I did want to try some of the other meals and just see what they were like because the only ones I've done were the low carb meals.
Yeah, I would prefer to do it myself, but like I said, after 13, 14-hour day, I don't want to come
Right.
home and cook, and then it's almost bedtime to turn around and do it all over again. Or 2 minutes in the
Yeah.
microwave, just somehow appeals to me.
Exactly. And especially when it's something like that that is fresh, you know. So yeah,
So,
my schedule's kind of the same. I've been working 14-hour days, just trying to get extra overtime in.
right.
So yeah, after that, by the time you get off, even working at home, you know, like you're out actually doing the CTs. So you're on your feet, you're doing work that's not sitting down at a desk all day. But you know, even just the fact that I'm working from home, by the time I get off, my job is so mentally draining that I just don't even want to do anything but sit in front of the TV and veg out.
Do you work out?
I have started working out. That was one thing that was a big struggle for me. And I think that, and you know, now that you've asked, one of the other side effects that I had experienced that I didn't think to mention earlier was fatigue.
Hmm.
And I think it's not just the medication. I think it's a combination of the medication, and I have a low potassium, which can also make you feel very fatigued. So trying to find the right potassium supplement and balance that out, I think has helped. And so lately, I've been trying to get more exercise in. And of course, I think I mentioned to you, I'm in the process of moving right now.
Right.
So I haven't been working out as much as I would like to the last couple of weeks because we're trying to get things packed up and ready to move. But within the last, I would say 6 weeks, I had decided I need to get a more structured workout routine. So I did start going to Pilates. So I was doing that
Mhm.
every Saturday for a while, and then I've kind of backed it up to every other Saturday. And right now I'm kind of taking a break because I move in 2 weeks. So once I get
Understandable.
situated, then I'll be going back to Pilates. But I also have my treadmill and my exercise bike that are kind of collecting a little dust right now. but but they're in my face, so I look at them and I'm like, okay, yeah, I can at least get on and walk a little bit while I'm watching TV. And I've done it a
Awesome.
little bit here and there throughout, you know, the time that I've been on my GLP-1. And I have my weights. I keep my free weights by my desk,
Hmm.
and I sometimes on my breaks I'll pick up my weights and I'll just start, you know, doing a little bit of strength training on a break.
Right.
So
Have you noticed any muscle loss?
I can't say physically I've noticed any, but there was one time when, you know how when you get a bottle of ketchup and it's brand new and it has the little seal on it, you have
Hmm.
to take the lid off and peel the seal off. And so I had a new bottle of ketchup and I went to open it and I'm sitting there struggling trying to get the lid off. And so I asked my daughter, "Can you open this?" Because I'm thinking they must have, you know, twisted it on way too tight. And she just picked it up and opened it like it was no problem. I'm like, okay. So then I started paying attention and I noticed that it is harder for me to do certain things, to lift certain things, or to open bottles or jars. So I do think there has been some muscle loss, but it's not physically noticeable.
Have your taste buds changed any since the medication?
Yes. Prior to starting my GLP-1, my morning breakfast would always consist of coffee. I would have my coffee and creamer and some Jordan skinny syrup. That was every morning without fail. And I think the first so I started my medication on Friday. Saturday and Sunday I was okay. Monday I made my coffee and I sat down to work and I'm like, this doesn't taste right. Something's wrong with this coffee. Like maybe the because I used the little K pods. I was like, maybe the pod was old. And so I poured it out and I made another cup of coffee using a different pod, you know, a different flavor, and it still tasted rancid. And
Hmm.
I'm like, something's not
Not the
right.
coffee.
And to this day, I have not had another cup of coffee.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I'd be lost without my cup of coffee in the morning.
this is now my new my new caffeine staple. So I still have my protein, my Fairlife shake in the morning, but then shortly after I'm drinking my Coke Zero for my caffeine.
So, comfort food, is it different on GLP-1 than it was before?
I think everything is different on the GLP-1 because comfort food before was pretty much anything that's fatty or greasy, fried, you know, and now it's like maybe something that's still satisfying. Like the first thing that's coming to mind that I would think of as now what I would consider comfort food would be maybe something like a good chicken spaghetti.
Hmm.
So not fried, still has a little bit of that fat in there with the cheese, but you've got your chicken and pasta and you know so yeah, I would definitely say that comfort food, I look at, or my thought of what comfort food is now is definitely different.
So, what made you decide to start a YouTube channel?
Really, I thought I was going to be the only one on here that nobody was going to watch my channel. I said I'm going to document my journey because when I did keto, I saw a drastic change from losing 65 pounds, but it was not documented beginning to end. And I did, towards the end of my keto journey, start doing YouTube videos that didn't really take off or go anywhere. But I had wished I had started at the beginning so I could see where I started. And then I also said, I want something that's going to keep me accountable. So even if there's just one
Right.
person that tunes in on a regular basis, I know I've got somebody that is looking for me to post a video about how my week went, or, did I lose weight? Did I gain weight? Did I eat the right foods? Or, somebody who's out there watching me. So I'm more likely to stick with this and do what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I said, I'm just going to put it out there. And like I said, if nobody watches, hey, at least I can see where I started and where I'm at, see my journey and how I've progressed over the time. And so that's really why I started. I had no clue that I would actually get subscribers and people would interact with me and follow my journey and say, hey, good job. So it's encouraging.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is. It's kind of like the same reason why I started mine. It was a little bit later. My journey was almost over when I decided to do it. And one of the things that motivated me was I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do it while I'm really heavy because, the camera's going to really make me look even heavier. And I got to the point, okay, this is the time to do it. So I did, started off and started building it. I think I get out of it as much as other people get out of it, so
Mhm.
it's kind of a two-way street.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I did think the same thing. I was like, I don't want to. I hated the way I looked on cam. I avoided pictures, and I hated the way that I looked in my clothes, and just I was so self conscious. But I figured nobody's watching these videos anyway, so I'm just gonna do it. And even showing my injection, like I would never show my belly at all.
I
And
hear you. Same thing.
I show my injections, and I was like, did I actually just do that? And when I posted my first video where I did my injection in my belly, and I'm like, oh my God, someone's gonna see this video. And I don't show anyone my belly. My best friend didn't even know I had a YouTube channel until like 2 weeks ago. And so it's like I'm thinking nobody that I know is actually seeing these, so who cares what you look like? You can goof up and make a fool of yourself, and it's fine. And I figured by the time, if my channel was to grow, by the time it grows, I'll be a little bit better at doing the videos and I'll be more confident on film and, in front of the camera. So I'm like, just get it out of the way. Just do it. Who cares? So,
Yeah, I know my first video, it took me like 7 tries just to get my name right. Yeah.
oh my God, when I go back and watch some of my videos, I cringe. I think there's one where I'm doing the introduction and I'm like, I'm so happy you joined me today. And I'm like, oh goodness. So yeah, they are pretty cringeworthy.
Yeah, some of them are. Um, so do you take supplements?
I take a potassium supplement. Obviously, my potassium is low. So I do take a potassium supplement. I take a multivitamin daily. I use the HEB brand of the Centrum for women 50 plus.
Hmm.
And then I also take hair, skin, and nail vitamins because, and I don't know if you can see, like my hair thins pretty bad up here in the front. And that was even before I started my GLP-1 journey, even before keto, my hair was thinning. But I think keto really made it start thinning more. Um, so I take that. And then I also take some fiber gummies. So, and then the Mago 7 is the other one. So
Keep it pretty simple, huh?
I try to. I don't like taking. I have to. I have like a little case that has a compartment for each day, and each day
Hmm.
has a morning and a PM because I'll forget if I took my medicine. So I have to go and look at the thing and see if the pills are there. I know I didn't take it. If they're not, then okay, you
Welcome
took it.
to over 50.
Jeez, it doesn't get better, does it?
Have you had any unexpected surprises? Like for me, I've noticed that I have a better mental clarity since I've been on the medication. Have you had any unexpected things like that?
Yes, that exactly. I was at work one day and I'm like, I had finished all my work and it was maybe noon. And I'm thinking, where did the day go? Like, I haven't been sitting here thinking about food all day. And so normally I'm eating breakfast and then I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to eat for lunch? And then I eat lunch and I'm thinking, what am I going to eat for dinner? And oh wait, we have some popcorn out there, or we have we have chips, or it was constantly what's in the refrigerator, or if I knew something was there. Like right
Mhm.
now there's a brownie. I went to my friend's party yesterday and I brought home a brownie and some little pecan squares. Normally that would have been calling to me all night long saying, hey, I'm here. I'm sitting here. Don't you want to come and eat? These pecan squares were really good. You want a bite of this, don't you? You can just take one bite. And that would be all day while I was working. And I noticed that hadn't happened. And I'm like, I was able to get all my work done, not think about food once, had to remind myself, hey, it's time to eat lunch. And I hadn't thought about food. And it was so refreshing because until I started taking a GLP-1, I thought that's how everybody thought. I thought
Mhm.
everybody heard food talking to them all the time and they were just better at resisting it than I was. I didn't know until I didn't hear it that that was the normal. And I was talking to my friend and I was like, so those chips that are sitting in your kitchen don't call to you all day? And she's like, no, if I want them, I eat them. If I don't think about them. And so yeah, that was the biggest thing for me. I mean, I had heard about food noise. I knew what food noise was, but I didn't realize that that's what I was dealing with all day every day until I didn't hear it. So, yeah, the mental clarity is definitely, not having that food noise being so distracting, being able to
Right.
focus on something else was definitely a shock to me.
So do you weigh yourself daily, weekly?
Hmm. I weigh every day. I don't. I document my weight, and I use the Shotzi app, And so every day I weigh myself and I put my weight in my app, but I don't count how much I lost for the week until Friday, or how much
Hmm.
I gained, because there are weeks
Right.
when I gain. But that's been kind of a debate, I think, in the GLP-1 world. The community people. Some people are like, "Oh, don't weigh yourself every day. It's too distracting or it's too discouraging." For
I'm a
me,
daily weigher.
it is encouraging, because even if I go up today, I can think about, like, I know I went up today. When I got on the scale this morning, I was up, and I know why. I went to a party yesterday, and
Hmm.
I indulged. And I purposely said I'm going to have a margarita. I had one margarita,
Hmm.
and I didn't have a brownie. I did bring one home. I had like 3 pecan squares. They're like little pecan pie squares, and they were so good. So I had 3 of them, and I had a taco and some chips, and that was about it. But I knew I had kind of eaten a little bit more sweets, and that I had the margarita. So I knew I was going to be up today, but I'm okay with that, because I know
Right.
tomorrow it's probably going to go right back down. And if I was to get on the scale Friday and my weight was, let's say what it was, I think 154.3 or 153.4. And then if I get on the scale this coming Friday and my weight was 155, and I didn't see the changes throughout the week, I would think, oh, I just gained 2 pounds. But if I see that I went down Saturday, went down Sunday, went up Monday, went down Tuesday, if I can see how it's
Right.
fluctuating throughout the week, I feel better about, oh yeah, I did gain 2 pounds, but I was down this week. So I know that next week is probably going to do the same thing. It's going to fluctuate and go up and down. So when I get on the scale, if it's up, it doesn't bother me.
Right. That's kind of the way I feel. Now you mentioned that you injected it into your stomach. Do you primarily do your stomach? Have you tried other sites?
I have done my thighs, and I don't necessarily think I have a preference between the two. It's just easier, I think, for me to inject my stomach, especially if I'm doing it on camera, versus trying to figure out how I'm gonna lift my thigh up, what I'm gonna stand on, and it's just easier to do in my belly. And I did have a reaction twice since I've been giving my injections, and
Hmm.
both times was when I injected my right thigh. So I
Hmm.
don't know if there's something different about that, or, just that time, those 2 times, it gave me a slight reaction. But as far as the weight loss and the appetite suppression, I don't notice a difference. I have not done my arms, and I would like to try my arms. It's just, I figure with a syringe trying to do it, it's easier to do it with a pen, because you just lift up and stick it and push the
Right.
button, versus trying to, grab the skin, and so trying to find something where I could pinch it and then still be able to inject it. I just haven't looked too far into it, but I wouldn't mind trying my arm just to see if there's any difference. But I'm happy with
I
my
know even Eli Lilly recommends the second person do it when you do it on the
right.
arm.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't
So,
have anybody here that I trust to do that. My kids, I don't think I would want them. So
so what do you say to people that say that the GLP-1 is a shortcut or it's cheating?
I say, if you got a flat tire, would you try to change the tire with just your hands, or would you use the tools that are in your trunk, the jack and the lug nut wrench?
That's
Obviously,
a
you're
good
going to use
analogy.
the tools that are provided. You're not going to try to take lug nuts off with your hands. So to me, GLP-1s are just a tool that are there to make losing the weight a little easier. It's not a shortcut.
No, we still have to do the work.
Exactly. Exactly. You still have to eat the right foods, and you still have to
Right.
exercise, or and I have heard a lot of people say, "Well, I did it without exercising. I just let the medicine do the work." Okay, but how much muscle did you lose when you were
Mm-hmm.
losing the weight? So, and again, I'm guilty of not doing enough exercising. I'll admit that. So, I'll be the first to say that I need to do more than what I'm doing, because I don't want to be at the end of this journey and having lost almost all of my muscle and still be fat, skinny fat, or fat skinny, whatever the term is. So, and that's the thing. You can let the medicine do the work, but, that's not the healthy way to do it.
Right. Now you mentioned keto. Were there any other types of diets that you tried?
Okay, so diet specifically, I did keto, I did Atkins, I did the standard American diet. Through We have this other program through work called Real Appeal, where they would send you really, they sent you a whole kit where they had a food scale and a plate that had little pictures of, like, this is how much vegetables, this is how much protein, this is how much carbs, and then this is how much fat. And so you would put the stuff on your plate, and you could use the little scale to weigh it. So I did that. Um, I did intermittent fasting. And, other than that, I did a lot of the medications to help. Like, I did I told you about the metformin, topiramate, naltrexone. I tried bupropion and um, Finnerman. That was the first one that or other than way back in.
I think I lost you, Pam.
My internet. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
There we go.
I didn't know
Okay.
if it was your end or my end because we're having storms here.
Oh no. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know. I mean, not storming, but I didn't know if it was my internet. So Finnerman was probably the first medication that I took strictly to lose weight, and I did lose a good amount of weight on Finnerman. But again, as soon as I stopped taking it, I gained all the weight back. And when I wanted to go back on Finnerman, I couldn't, because that's when my blood pressure was high, and I couldn't get my blood pressure regulated while on Finnerman. So I wasn't able to take it anymore.
So, I mean, typically all these diets, we tend to lose it and gain it back. So obviously, maintenance on all these diets seems to
Hmm.
be a problem. Do you, or are you considering staying on this medication like pretty much forever?
Yep.
Or
That is
do you
my
think you're
intent.
going to get off of it?
I look at it just like I look at my blood pressure medicine. Just because my eating and my weight may be regulated or at a normal level does not mean that I'm cured. So,
Mhm.
in order to maintain a healthy weight and healthy eating habits, I would need to be on the medication for maintenance. So that's my intent, is to stay on it indefinitely, or at least some form of the medication, with all the
Right.
different options that'll be coming out. Hopefully something will be more financially stable. But yeah,
So what do you use to track your food?
I use Carb
Or,
Manager,
okay.
and I track pretty much everything. Yesterday was a little hard to track because I don't know exactly what was in the different things that we had,
Right.
but when I'm at home, I scan everything that I eat, or the barcodes, or I weigh my food. I have a scale that I weigh all of my food, and I put it in there and track everything. So I know pretty much down to every gram what I'm getting as far as protein, calories, fats, carbs, all of that. So.
So I know some people are really traumatized by tracking, so that it doesn't affect you.
It did at first. I was horrible at tracking at first. I did not want to do it. I would forget. And I think now it's just kind of become habit. So it's almost second nature. And even if I don't do it as soon as I eat, at the end of the day, I'm looking to see how many calories did I eat today. And if I forgot to put something in, I'm going back and I'm putting it in at night. Or, sometimes it may be a day or two later and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I had this protein bar on Wednesday. I forgot to put that in because I'll look to see did I get enough calories, because that was the main thing. When I started, I was only eating like maybe 900 calories a day. And
That's, that's a
yeah,
tough one.
yeah, the weight was coming off and I was loving that, but I'm like, I'm so tired. I need to eat more. And I'm like, this can't be healthy to just eat 900, 1,000 calories. So that's really when I started saying I need to be more diligent with looking at what I'm eating, because I was tracking. I
Hmm.
just really wasn't paying attention to it. And so I was like, yeah, I need to look at the number and make sure that I'm getting enough. So I started bumping up my calories. Like when I would get to 1,200, then I'd be like, okay, now I need to bump it up to 1,250, and then I would go to 1,300. And so now I'm maintaining around 1,500. My goal is 1,600 a day, and some days I hit it. Yesterday I doubled that, but I figure as long as my average for the week is somewhere around 1,600, then I'm good.
Do you have a protein goal?
Yes, I try to hit over 100. I rarely make that though. I, even with the protein shakes in the morning, I'm rarely hitting 100. I'm usually around 90. 80,
That's not too
86
bad.
seems like a common number with me. So,
That's not too bad. Have you had any plateaus in your journey?
not really. I mean, for me, a plateau is at least 4 weeks of not losing
Right.
anything. And I don't even consider, like, if my weight was say at 170 for a whole month, but I lost 2 inches around my waist, I don't consider that a plateau. So
Hmm.
I can't say that I've had any. I've had weeks where I've gone up, or I've had weeks where I may have stayed the same or went down, went back up. And, so over the course of a month, I may have only lost a half a pound or a pound. But my weight has not been at a steady point for a full month, and I haven't I've consistently been losing inches. So
So obviously you do measurements.
yes, yes, I try to do them every 4 weeks. I'm kind of behind right now because I forgot to do my measurements for June. So I figured I'm just going to skip it and I'll do my July. And I have a little chart that I have up on my wall next to my desk that I put all of my measurements from the day that I started. And each month when I do my measurements, I go in and I update it and I'll put how many inches I've lost.
Hmm.
So it's a good visual reminder for me to say that this is how far you've come. So I love seeing that up on my wall.
So what do you say to somebody who's thinking about starting a GLP-1 or just started a GLP-1?
If they're thinking about it, I would say just do it. Just do it. You won't regret it. Don't be scared of the needles. I think that was probably my biggest thing is
Hmm.
I didn't want to do the injections. I worked in a lab when I was in high school, and they wanted me to start doing phlebotomy, drawing the blood, and I'm like, no, I can't, because I'm thinking you poke somebody with a needle, much less poking yourself with a needle. That I feel like our brains are hardwired to protect ourselves from pain. And so obviously if you're putting a needle in and you're feeling the pain, you're going to be like, no, stop, pull it out. But it doesn't even hurt. I barely even feel the needle. It I would not go back and change my decision, other than maybe to do it sooner. So if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, if you're worried about the needles or doing the injections, you're scared of the injections, just do it. Just do it. And each time it gets easier. Now I do my injections. I don't even think about them other than the
Right.
fact that now I'm recording. So, I think about, can they see it on the camera? That's about it. For someone who just started, I would say keep track of your progress, take pictures, take your measurements, track your food, at least to some extent, even if you're not documenting, like me, measuring your food and weighing it out. Take pictures, something so that you can see what you're eating. Because, again, with me, I was eating less than 1,000 calories and didn't even realize it. And so it's good to have that reminder of, okay, this is what I ate. And then also, say 1 week or 2 weeks you gain 5 pounds, you can go back and you can say, okay, this is what I ate. Maybe these particular foods are not the best things for me to eat. So that's a good way for me to go back and see if the scale is going up, then I can say, okay, I did eat this that I don't normally eat. So, but those would be my three suggestions: is take pictures, take measurements, and keep track of your foods and keep track of your side effects.
Right.
So,
And sometimes your food plays a role in your
yes,
side effects.
definitely. Definitely, especially with the constipation or nausea. So,
Right.
oh, and I would also suggest make sure you get protein in before you do your injection, because sometimes after you do your injection, it's a little hard to eat. And that way, at least you've
Yeah.
already gotten your protein in. So,
Yeah, I have these little protein shots in a pack because I'm not real big on protein water, but you just squeeze the shot in and
oh,
it gives you a decent, I think it's 20 grams of protein, and I could at least handle it. 70 calories, I could at
oh,
least handle that.
yeah. I might have to get the name of that from you. So anything will help
Protein,
this
I think it's called Protein. I get it on Amazon.
one. Okay. Yeah, I might want to
It's
try
they
that.
have I think berry and they have orange cream. There's a couple companies that make it. If you just
Okay.
on Amazon, especially with the Prime Day coming up, just put in protein shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, because I did start drinking the protein waters, and there were a few brands that I tried that I didn't like, but I really like the Seek brand. Um, but even after a while, you had mentioned earlier about your taste buds changing. After a few weeks of drinking those, they were just too sweet for me. And so I
Mm.
have like 4 containers downstairs that are pretty much full that I just don't even drink right now. So I'm hoping to eventually be able to start drinking them again just to get that extra added protein in. But
Are you a water drinker or do you add anything to your water?
I, yeah, I need to do better with my water. I usually will add either Crystal Light, or one of the things that I just recently found is called Pure Kick. And it's like
Mm.
hydration packets. I mean, I drink Element too because I like
Yeah,
I,
that's
I like
Element's my favorite.
I love their chili mango. And so,
Hmm.
but these are not quite as salty, I guess. They don't have as much sodium in them, but they're just like little Crystal Light packets, but it's called Pure Kick, and they have a bunch of different flavors, and they have some that are energy and some that are hydration. And so I've been drinking a lot of that lately.
Good to know. I'll have to try some of that.
Yeah.
But I do tend to, have my Element in my water right here. Uh, and I have like usually two a day.
Yeah.
And then either have plain water, which isn't my favorite, or I'll throw some Crystal Light in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really
And-
big on the Crystal Light just because I can drink plain water, but it's usually like if I've been out working in the yard and it's just hot, or it's always hot here in Texas. I think you're in Florida, right?
Yeah, I'm in South Florida, so it's
So,
pretty
so
hot here
pretty
too.
much, pretty much the same climate. It's really hot, and so when I go outside, I'll put some bottles of water in the freezer because I like when they're slushy. So that's the best way for me to drink just plain water is if it's just slushy, and then I can
And I'm one of these
chuck it down.
crazy people that do my workout in a sauna. Yeah.
Yeah. So
What can
that
I
I
say?
definitely drink the water in the sauna.
Definitely. That's usually where my 2 bottles of element go to every day.
Yeah.
Um, so any closing remarks or anything you want everybody to know?
I'll say that find a community, and I guess I should have said this for people who are just starting the journey. Find a community, especially if you don't have a support system at home. Some of us do, some of us don't. Um, if you have a community, it makes the journey so much easier. So whether it's me or you or somebody else on YouTube or any other social media platform,
Right.
or if it's a family member or a friend, find a community, somebody that's going to support you, that's going to encourage you, and that's going to keep you motivated. A workout partner or an accountability partner is always key to finding success in any
Absolutely.
weight loss journey. So definitely find that, and that'll make all the difference in your success.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this.
Thank
Pamela's channel will be linked in the description. Please, everybody, go check it out. Give her a thumbs up, like this video, share it. Again, subscribe to her channel. There's plenty of channels out there. I support all of them. I think you should be in as many of them as you could, because, again, support is such a big part of this journey.
you.
I
Yeah.
want to thank you again.
And thank you so much for having me. It was great talking with you.
Awesome. I'm just going to end this.
Okay.
Hang on a second.